since St. Louis has one of the largest private high school markets in the country. Let's find out more. Teen expert Dr. Russell Heiken is with us to weigh the options of public versus private. Good morning. Good to see you once again. Thanks. All right, what are the options? What do you consider here when you're thinking public versus private?
Well, I think both public and private schools can do things well. But I think the first and most important thing is to consider practicality. You know, that best school, if it's not within a reasonable distance, is not the best school for you because that's going to limit social circles, limit extracurricular activities.
What about, I know parents go over this all the time. At what point do you do it? Is it good to go in and then come back out? Well, what have you found in your practice?
Well, I think it's nice to commit to something. So if you're going to send your kids to one grade school, unless there's a reason to pull them, then stay through that grade school. Once they get to the high school years, I think it becomes very important, though, to stick with your decision. So if it's a situation where you're in private school and you have a child that's in high school, you need to make sure you can afford that for the next 4 years.
Okay, you talked about location, talked a little bit about cost. What are some of the other factors you need to look at when making that decision between public and private?
Well, look at the curriculum. You know, once again, both public and private schools can have rigorously academics programs. They can have good sports, they can have good arts, but look at that school and make sure that it has the program that you want, because some schools do that better than others. Also, if you have a child with special needs, same thing. Both public and private schools offer services for those kids, but once again, some will service one population better than the other.
All right, we talked about this on my radio show yesterday. I got a lot of people talking. We had a financial expert that said if you were thinking private school, you have to have enough money to pay for all the years you plan on them being there. So if your private school is $20,000, you better have $80,000 in the bank, because it's worse for kids to go to a private school, have to come back out if they lose a job, and then back in. What are your thoughts?
I agree with that 100%. I think it's a little easier in the grade school years if you run into that situation, because grade school kids are so much more forgiving than high school kids. Imagine telling your teenager as he's going into his junior or senior year that, guess what, we don't have the money to afford school anymore. Also, at that level, your teenager can understand that there's a financial crunch in the family, and that will create a whole nother level of stress. So I think you're absolutely right. You need to look at that big picture.
It definitely gets people talking, and as has been pointed out, some schools will offer tuition assistance if something happens. Others, though, you're on your own, aren't you?
Right, but if you do run into that situation where you lose your job, go and talk to the school, especially if you've been at that school a few years. Maybe offer to trade services for tuition rates, things like that. Schools will be creative, especially if you've been a good parent.
All right, Doc, thanks so much. Good to see you once again.
Thank you.
Dr. Russell Heiken, psychotherapist here in St. Louis. Stick around. Monica, going to clock your commute next.